Okay, so let's do this to. Okay, and put this here. Okay, so this is the interview that I have to do for my sports management class with Jared Taunton. I think that's his last name.
Yeah.
So this is basically like a basic interview where I ask you some questions about your job as a sports manager and your career. So in your bio, it says you're the Associate Director of Leadership and Programs here at ECU.
Yes, sir.
So about your career and background. So Mr. Waters, tell me about your career journey and how you ended up here at ECU.
Yeah, so I'm a first gen student. I'm from Beaufort County, North Carolina, out there in the country. Um,
Or really, what part of the state is that in?
if you go about an hour east from here, you go towards Little Washington and then you keep
Mm-hmm.
going, a
Mm-hmm.
little place called Pinetown, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the lens of which a lot of my experiences come from is kind of rural North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Went to a community college for out of high school, and
Mm-hmm.
in high school I played football, threw shot and discus, enjoyed sports,
Oh,
um,
nice.
and then I went to community college, got my associate of arts degree, and then transferred to East Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
where I studied physical education.
Mm-hmm.
My last semester of undergrad, I was working at the rec center. My first day on campus, I walked into the rec and there was a big banner that said, "Do you like sports? Do you like money? Come officiate." And so I
Mm-hmm.
became a high school or became an official. And then I worked for the department that last year, and a graduate assistant position came open at
Mm-hmm.
Campus Recreation and Wellness. I applied, filled in for a guy who left early for a semester, and then was the selected candidate and went and got my master's here at ECU through Campus Rec. When I graduated my master's in 2011, there was a job open at NC State. Went there, worked for a year, and during that time, ECU, my boss retired.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually, our previous boss retired. I actually came back to ECU in 2012 as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, I oversaw our club sport program and worked on the facilities team. We had some change in leadership and some reorganization of duties here at Campus Rec, and I stuck with the facilities team in 2016. And they went over, and I left the club sport world. And then, just as 2 years ago, 3 years ago now almost, I returned to the programming side of the house, which oversees adventure programs, athletic training, club sports, and intramural sports.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And also, some of the questions I might ask you may repeat, but I have a whole list of questions that I'm
Cool.
going to ask, and I just don't want to get mixed up. So, so number two, what initially attracted you into working in higher education? I know you said you did a lot of things with ECU and NC State and things like that. So, what initially attracted you into working in higher education?
I think initially, just kind of, from growing up in the, small country town down the road, ECU was kind of like the Mecca a little bit. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you wanted stability, you would get a state-funded job,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was part of it. Was kind of setting yourself up for long-term career growth and planning.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be consistent, right? I thought I was going to be a teacher. So working for the state was always kind of in my plan. And then when I found my graduate assistant job, I really just fell in love with what I was doing, and it was a way to help students continue to chase their passion through sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, hey, I think this could be for me, and just started learning more about it, and then started creating new procedures and how we were going to operate, and just kind of stuck with it.
Mm-hmm. So you said your major in college was sports. Like what was it again?
I was a physical education major, and
Okay.
I did a concentration in history. I thought I was going to be a teacher, and then
Hmm.
I went and got my master's in education.
Hmm. So you played football and flag and a discus in high school, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I also did run track in high school. I did cross country,
Oh yeah.
and I also played football like my sophomore and junior year, but I sucked at it, so I quit. Yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay.
I went to Douglasburg High School. I don't know if you ever heard of that before.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of it.
So let's see. So if you can remember, have you used any other information you learned in college in your job? If you can remember that far.
Yeah. No. I think the biggest thing for me coming from a teaching background
Hmm.
is just being aware that people learn and receive and process information very differently.
Hmm.
So there's not really a cast a net, one size fits all.
Hmm.
So I think that, in my studies really helped me realize, hey, you need to be prepared to teach the same lesson in different ways. And I
Hmm.
think I take that and apply it to what I do currently. When we're working with club officers of the tennis club, we speak to them very differently than how we speak to the rugby club.
Hmm.
Just based off their sport and their demeanor, and how you got to process some information and make sure the check for understanding there. I
Hmm.
think also trying to be prepared. As a teacher, if you're sick, your kids still come to school if you're not
Hmm.
there. So kind of having like thorough, thought out lesson plans for when you're not there. So, like a
Hmm.
substitute teacher plan. I think
Hmm.
that really helped establish some procedures in my work life that helps create some automation. So the world doesn't stop if I'm not here.
Hmm. So when you were in college, like specifically before you started getting into the field that you're in now, did you have any mentors or influential figures that you looked up to, anything like that?
Yes. So I think one would be our director here that retired from ECU. Her name's Nancy Mize. She was here for
Hmm.
38 years.
Oh
Just the
wow.
way she led with her passion, with her heart. A lot of times now, sometimes that got us in trouble. But I think she gave me a magnet like my second year here for
Hmm.
Christmas that's just said, um, you know, risk more than people think are safe and love more than people think is safe as well, or something like that. And
Hmm.
it's just like all little notes of encouragement and wording. And is only 125 pounds maybe, and 5'6", but just a spitfire of energy. And her work ethic, while she might have been the director, and when she retired she was an assistant vice chancellor level,
Hmm.
if we were having a special event she was hauling trash and picking up and doing manual labor. She
Hmm.
it was always a we work together, he doesn't work for me. And I think that was a big part of my life.
Hmm. So you said in college you had internships, right? Or an internship, right?
Yes, so I was a teacher, so I actually had to teach for my internship.
Oh wow. So like did you teach college classes or elementary?
I had K through 8, or excuse me, K through 12. But luckily I only had seventh graders were the lowest that I went. So I had a seventh and eighth grade class that was combined, and then I had ninth graders, and then I had mix of high school
Oh
for my
wow.
classes I taught at
Oh,
Beargrass, North Carolina.
oh wow. So how was that working with little children?
I quickly discovered in the internship that I did not want to be surrounded by kids like that every day. That I
Exactly.
wanted some folks that maybe could think a little bit more,
Hmm.
instead of looking towards me to instill thoughts. And so for me, I kind of knew then that I did not want to enter a career where I was working with anyone really under the age of 18.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, like honestly, I honestly don't like children. Like, no offense, like I'm gonna let you in on the secret. Like, I went to daycare when I was younger, up until
Yeah.
like seventh grade, and I absolutely hated it. And I was around little children all the time. So I just don't like being around little kids at all. They just annoy me to no end.
Yeah, same. And we used to have a youth and family program and to run
Hmm.
summer camps, and I can do it. Don't get me wrong, and not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty good at it as
Hmm.
well. But I don't enjoy it personally. But it definitely fills a cup for some people. But even in my own personal life, my partner and I, we are not having children. So we're all out on kids.
So do you have any pets in place of the children or?
I do, yeah. So we have a 13-year-old mixed dog. Her name's Lucy. I actually
Oh,
run a trivia company on the side,
uh-huh.
and it's called Pup Pub Trivia. So we take her to Uptown Brewery every other Thursday night, and
Hmm.
we do trivia, and she gets to walk around and meet people.
Oh, that's nice. That's cute. So what were some of the biggest challenges and obstacles you had when first starting out?
I think first, and you mean in my career?
Yes.
Yeah. I think the first part is becoming that graduate assistant and transitioning. I really my only job. My parents had a rule that if I was playing sports, that I didn't have to work.
Hmm.
And so I played a fall sport and a spring sport my all 4 years of high school. So my
Hmm.
first job was here at ECU as an official. So just kind of making that adjustment from, at night, as an official, you're refereeing. My
Hmm.
work schedule was 5 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Hmm.
Whereas then I transitioned into this career and I operate more of unfortunately, like a 9 to 5 at the time with
Hmm.
some flex. Um, I think from there, that was like the biggest challenge is just kind of like learning the office culture of like what's acceptable, what clothes do you wear,
Hmm.
those type of things was an adjustment. Just never experiencing that. I
Hmm.
think also I'm a first gen student, so these
Hmm.
problems I have, I couldn't go to my mom and dad and be like, man, my professor did this or this happened here, and it was always like will study harder or they're like
Yeah.
some very basic things
Yeah.
just because they didn't know themselves.
Yeah.
So
I'm a
I
first
think that was
generation
a
student too.
yeah, so I think
Yeah.
that's a little bit of a challenge
Hmm.
definitely to start off with, but that was probably it. And there in higher education there's a game we play. We're in a bubble. There's
Hmm.
a lot more um leeway to fail in higher ed because we're learning from it, right? And are we making
Hmm.
mistakes or are we making mishaps? Are we learning and growing from these mistakes that we have? So I think that was an adjustment, knowing that you got a second or third chance here when you work for the university, higher ed with our students, but in
Hmm.
the quote unquote real world, you be late for one shift and you might get fired.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that was something to that I appreciated that I learned early on.
All right. So this internship you had, it was paid, right?
It was not.
Oh, oh, okay. You're the associate director of leadership and program. So what does a typical day look like for you? Like, what do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, so we host pretty much games year long. So we
Hmm.
have our students who fill out information. So I'm usually the first or second person in the office. I like to get here by 7:45.
Hmm.
And so I review what happened the night before,
Hmm.
whether, or what our reports say, how the soccer games go last night, or did we have a hole that popped up on field 6 that needs to be fixed before we play again tonight? So
Hmm.
I kind of do some frontline, check over some things. And then I serve on multiple committees for our department, for the division, and the university. Um, Check through my emails. Right now, we just hired my replacement. So I was
Hmm.
promoted into this role, and we are fortunate enough to hire a senior assistant director of sport program. So right now, working a lot on onboarding for him. Luckily, he has a strong experience and is very easy to manage.
Hmm.
But right now, just these past few weeks, we've plotted out our entire year through May of 2026.
Oh, wow.
So we know when soccer championship is going to be in March of 26. We know when
Hmm.
flag football is going to be in September of 25.
Hmm.
So we're a year. in advance planning.
Hmm.
And that would just get, as we are now fully staffed, that will just continue to grow. So, in 2 years from now, I can tell you when we're going to start, basketball or whatever it might
Hmm.
be. So then go over, look at those kind of decisions, some long-term planning. Um, my biggest thing I'm trying to do right now in my associate level job is get out of a lot of the weeds. I am not
Hmm.
front staff management. While I enjoy that role, I know that other people have been hired to do that. And so I think when you
Hmm.
hire people for a job, you let them do said job.
Hmm.
And so not that I won't step in and help, but that's kind of been my adjustment right now at this associate level.
Okay. Also, so I have a question for you. How do you define leadership?
Sorry, I lost my light there.
Hmm.
Leadership. So I was part of ECU's Leadership Development Academy,
Hmm.
and they had this leadership phrase they basically use, and it's a relational process for inspiring, empowering, and influencing positive change.
Hmm.
And that is how leadership is defined. Because if you think about it, the first thing for me in that statement is it's relational. So you can't really be, you can be, are you a leader? If you're a leader, do you have followers?
Hmm.
You got to have a relationship with those people. So it's just not transactional, right?
Exactly.
It's not, you can't walk up and say, hey, I like 2 scoops of leadership and boom, boom, and then you go away. For me, leadership is ongoing. You're constantly trying to make people's lives better.
Hmm.
And that involves influencing them and empowering them. And hopefully, at some level, you inspire them through actions of your own or relevant articles that I send to my former graduate assistants or my former students or other colleagues, things that are happening around the world.
Hmm.
And so for me, I think that definition that they've given us of leadership is holds true.
Hmm. So you're a supervisor, right? You have people that work under you.
I do.
So what are some ways you motivate the staff and the students that you work with?
Yeah, so for students, it's food. We have a goodie jar. Like
Uh-huh.
I was fortunate enough I could go to my grandma's house and she didn't have a lot, but there was always a couple of cookies in a cookie jar somewhere.
Uh-huh. That's how my
Um,
grandparents were.
yeah, and so the I actually used to teach my students how to shoot a basketball for a free throw. You had to follow through and put your hand in the cookie jar. Like if grandma's cookie jar was on the top, you had to reach in
Hmm.
there. And that's how I would teach shooting a free throw.
Oh, wow.
Um, but for students, we have a goodie bag. I go to Sam's about once every 2 months, and I just
Hmm.
pick up Pop Tarts, Rice Krispie treats, mac and cheese bowls, a lot of grab and go stuff
Hmm.
because it's tough for our students to find and create time for them to eat and get the appropriate nutritional values they
Hmm.
desire. More than likely, they're not getting sleep, so I'm trying to fill one of those voids for them. And this isn't like, hey, I'm here to feed you. This is like you just got from class and you got to work that 5 o'clock shift, and you
Hmm.
didn't have time to go home type of thing. So
Hmm.
we have found that to be a great motivator for our students. And sometimes like we had to get on like, hey, a couple of times y'all forgot to clock out or you forgot to submit a facilities form. I just tell them
Right.
like, hey, if you don't do this stuff, the Pop Tarts go away.
Hmm.
So it's not really like a discipline thing, but it's like an expectation that they've come to appreciate. So that's with students, food, very easy to do. I think also with everybody, students and professional staff, I like to think that I empower them to make decisions.
Hmm.
Um, we're not in the business of if we make a decision that someone's going to die, really.
Hmm.
Now athletic training might be a little different, but if they decide that, hey, this part of the field's a little damp, we're going to move over to a different part of the field, go
Hmm.
for it. Like we're missing basketballs or missing jerseys. Go figure it out. Go find out what we're going to do. So I like to think that I like to empower people. And then, every person you supervise is different. I can tell one of my direct reports, raw, unfiltered, hey, you suck and you messed this up. And that's how they're going to respond the best. If I
Mm-hmm.
do that with someone else, they're going to cry in my office for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So just learning your people, and I think through that leadership, the relational process, you get to know people and you get to learn what makes them tick,
Mm-hmm.
and you use those to your advantage for positive change.
Mm. This next question I'm gonna ask is pretty self-explanatory, but I want to get your insight on it. So, how crucial is great communication?
It's very crucial,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just not. Not only is it crucial in the moment that you're doing it, but
Mm-hmm.
also to make sure that whatever you are communicating has been heard.
Mm-hmm.
Preparing, you have to train your mind to take in said information and comprehend so that,
Mm-hmm.
you sometimes you hear, yeah, are you listening to me? Or are you hearing me?
Mm-hmm.
I need you to hear what I am saying, just not words that come to my mouth and it's reverberating in your eardrum, right? Um, so I think communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, is very key. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I like right now. I tried to have some background behind me for this video interview. I
Mm-hmm.
try to have my lights on, sitting up straight, trying to give you my full and undivided attention.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even while we had communication problems in the start of our meeting, I was
Mm-hmm.
pulling up the meeting chat. I was trying to give you cues of I can't hear you. So
Mm-hmm.
even though those I couldn't tell if you could hear me or not, but
Mm-hmm.
lip reading and all that those different things contribute to this communication. I think also when you have a conversation in person, it's just a good practice to recap said conversation in a follow-up email and just
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, per our discussion, or these are the things we discussed, or I heard you say, and
Mm-hmm.
then give it back to them. That way, if they're like, well, no, I didn't mean to do X, that way, this is a point where you can clarify even further.
Mm-hmm. So, can you think of a time in your any time of working in your career that you had to manage conflict?
Yeah, well, I'm a high school official for the past 20 years.
Oh wow.
So I manage conflict and get paid to do so. We always say that referees we make judgment based off rule knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of when you have conflict, that's what you go back to. All right. You make a judgment based off the facts that are presented with you and things from previous experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I think managing conflict is, very easy because it's a skill. And we
Mm-hmm.
learn skills by practicing and by doing. So if you don't shy away from said conflict and embrace it head on, you're better prepared for when unexpected conflict may arise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I address the problem head on. I'll take my warm whiskey in a dirty glass, just straight up. Hey, we're going to talk about this and figure it out plan.
Mm-hmm.
As we talked, sometimes it doesn't work for a lot of people, but I think when you're dealing with conflict, you always just go back on whatever some of your values are, and that might be
Mm-hmm.
values for your department or your values personally. And if you don't compromise on your values, it's very easy to settle a conflict. And if you come to a point where you just can't move forward, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We can disagree, but there's a way to be disagreeable.
Mm-hmm. So, can you think of any more intense moments that you had? Like, I know you said you're an official in high school sports. So, can you think of any more intense moments like here at ECU or any other time that you were working in a role?
Um, I draw back I was officiating a private school game here in town, and
Mm-hmm.
this was in grad school, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the coaches he didn't agree with a call we made, and my
Mm-hmm.
partner had given a technical already, and then he jumped up and stomped his feet, and I gave him another technical and ejected him. Well, he caused a big scene. They finally got him out of the gym. Well, when we finished the night, two of my four tires were slashed on my car.
Oh no!
Um,
Wow, really?
so it was just kind of ironic that I had two flat tires, but I had driven there just fine. And so just like I had to go back inside. It was the away team coach. So filing police reports and
Mm-hmm.
just I was supposed to have class that night, so I had to communicate to my professor. hey, I was working this game. I should have been good to go, but that my tires have been slashed. And I was in physical education, took a lot of sports management classes, so they were like, "What?" So they were really understanding of that
Mm-hmm.
situation. Um, the conflict was with me as an official, and that I couldn't even tell you that coach walked in my door today who it is. But just I work with the athletic department at that private school, and they actually paid for my tires to be replaced,
Oh, that's
which was
nice.
really nice of them. They didn't have to do, and that coach was terminated from his position
Yeah, as you should,
as a
honestly.
result of that, as I was told. So that was probably my biggest conflict. Of it wasn't you get some coaches or fans fans mostly, meet me outside or, type doing this. And I just try to kill people with kindness. I
Mm-hmm.
smile and try to agree with them. They go, "That's a terrible call." And I was like, "Man, you're right. I didn't have a good angle at it." Trying to guess where, just like you
Mm-hmm.
try to just disarm them from whatever they think you're going to say.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you say is the most rewarding part of your job?
I think for me, most rewarding is just when that light bulb moment happens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever been working on something and then you're like, oh, I just got to do this. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like seeing those in real time that they get what you're selling, is great. And then now as I've gotten older, I kind of have like a treasure chest of
Mm-hmm.
notes and cards and sweet moments and graduation cards and all these other things that I can draw upon if I'm having a bad day. I can be, oh, I really made a difference in Holly's life because she told me so in this note that she wrote me after having a hard day. Or and
Mm-hmm.
right now it's just connecting and staying connected with alumni. I'm real big on homecoming, and when it's time to come home, you come home. And I
Mm-hmm.
want people to stop by my office and let's go grab lunch if we can. And so just maintaining relationships is kind of my focus now, as I move on to my later stage of career.
Mm-hmm. So, what are some things you don't like about your job?
Um, Things I don't like. Sometimes, we're in higher ed right now. We're kind of in a
Mm-hmm.
financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
With our current administration cutting a lot of funding, grants, things that I find near and dear to my values are being
Mm-hmm.
attacked. But yet, the institution and the Assembly of North Carolina has mandated neutrality. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to be neutral when your opinion is silence is the voice of the oppressing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's been a challenge in these last few years. At one time, I served on the LGBTQ Advancement Council, which is
Mm-hmm.
no longer a thing and was dissolved. Um, we used to do some really cool stuff. Everyone's involved, everyone can play. It was a big
Mm-hmm.
campaign that we had, whether or not you were black, white, Christian, Hindu, gay, straight, whatever it is. If you could play
Mm-hmm.
sports, you can play sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so like having to and be told to like, hey, stop doing this, delete everything off, and get rid of any T-shirts that had ever said you did do this is very
Mm-hmm.
challenging to when you have to do what's right for the business and not necessarily what's good for your soul.
Mm-hmm. Well, so on the scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the success of your department right now?
I think far as campus recreation overall, I think we're, 10 out of 10. We do more with less and have done so for the past 20, 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, during COVID, a lot of people in our field left the field or they, went and did a different job and they just ain't built for it like some of us. And, I think CRW as a whole, we're 10 out of 10 for our department, as far as what we're doing in our club sport world and our intramural sports. I think we're about a 7 about what we offer to what we is on our plate right now. But we
Mm-hmm.
just added an additional resource in a professional leadership position, and I think we're going to be hitting 10 out of 10 here soon.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you work with club sports and intramural sports. So are those two separate departments or are those together?
So they are, we call them collectively sport programs, but they
Mm-hmm.
function individually as a specific program. So intramurals and clubs are very different. Intramurals are
Mm-hmm.
going to be more recreational based competition versus other ECU students.
Mm-hmm.
And then club sports are going to, we function like a small varsity program. They're
Mm-hmm.
student led, student run, student coached many times. They get a stipend of money from the university that we help manage and oversee. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
basically we're athletic director to 30 different teams. So very different than the common ECU student just shows up on Tuesday night, plays 1 hour of flag football, and then they come back next Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Club sports are there practicing 5 to 7 Monday through Friday. Then they're traveling to Florida State to play in a tennis tournament that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of and we're booking hotels for them. We're getting travel arranged for them. We're paying entry fees. So they're two different programs that but sport in the forefront.
So does your department work with any other athletic departments like on the main football team, the basketball team,
We do not.
things like that? Okay.
We are completely separate from ECU athletics, and
Mm-hmm.
honestly prefer to be that way.
Mm-hmm. So do you think sports are a good tool for leadership development?
100%. I think that the game of high school, I say that high school
Mm-hmm.
football is one of the last remaining true sports in our society.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got in college football now, NIL, here's $16 million, come play here at Texas. Like that's
That's
it's
crazy.
professional and stuff right now.
Yes.
Even in high school baseball and basketball, if you have two people who are really good,
Mm-hmm.
you can win games and be successful, right? If you have a
Mm-hmm.
pitcher who can absolutely no one can touch him, you can win games 1-0 all the time. That's great. Basketball,
Mm-hmm.
you have someone, who if you got LeBron James and Kevin Durant on your high school team, the other
Mm-hmm.
three people don't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
In football, if you got Tom Brady in high school at quarterback and no one can block for him, he's gonna be looking up at the sky because he's gonna be on his ass a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
I think what you gain from sport, and not only sport, but there's moments in sports when your back's against the wall, it is time to fish or cut bait. We've got
Mm-hmm.
a minute 30 to do what we've done all year long to go to the state championship. It's
Mm-hmm.
those moments in which our leaders are developed. And some
Mm-hmm.
people rise to the occasion and some people fall, but true leaders may fall, but they learn from it. So it doesn't happen
Mm-hmm.
again. Right. And so for me, I think that's sport in that setting is just so key. It's more than winning on the field. It's kind of what winning internally.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that student athletes or athletes in general have different leadership needs versus a person that doesn't play sports at all?
I think so. I think if you play sports, there's intrinsic motivation to a certain level that you
Mm-hmm.
do it because you want to be the best, that you
Mm-hmm.
want to, set this record or this goal. And I think that's kind of how, some of the most elite, greatest athletes of our time, that's why they're cocky. That's why they have attitude problems from, Michael Jordan is an asshole, just
I'm
complete
sure he
ass.
is.
Yeah, just complete ass.
Yes.
He the greatest basketball player of all time, arguably, right?
Yes.
Right now we just heard this beef between LeBron and Stephen A. Smith going
Mm-hmm.
down, and it's like, okay, well, look at all the stuff that. Do you tell me you don't want LeBron on your team because of one or two things? So, um, yeah, I think just athletes are motivated a little bit differently than
Mm-hmm.
non-athletes, and I think that's that relation piece that you can relate to people. That's why I feel that my team that works with me, we all played sports in high school and some at a higher level. I was recruited to play football, but just didn't want to go that route.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be at the weight room at 5 a.m. every day, doing
Mm-hmm.
squats. So, for me, it was a little bit of wear and tear on my body that I wasn't willing to commit to. But yeah, I definitely think that athletes have different intrinsic motivators. And if you can find out what motivates them, that's how you get great coaches.
Hmm. So how do you see leadership evolving in your department in the next 5 to 10 years?
I would say the next 5, 10 years, we're going to go through some budget troubles. There
Yeah.
is an enrollment cliff they keep speaking of. So we're 100% funded by student fees. So
Hmm.
if student population goes down, we get less money.
Hmm.
Well, while we're getting less money, the cost of living is still going up. So we got to make some decisions on what are some values and what are value adds.
Hmm.
We might have to cut programs. We'll probably charge for intramural sports moving forward to try to
Hmm.
just help offset some costs. And we know
Hmm.
that's gonna affect participation numbers.
Hmm.
Um, there's going to be some challenging times in the next 5, 10 years. But I like to think that we got stuff in place to combat that, and we're kind of getting in front of it, right? And so
Hmm.
that it doesn't hit us like a ton of bricks. It's just maybe a death by 1,000 cuts.
Hmm. Also, one of my friends told me last year, about the enrollment cliff that a lot of the kids that are going to college in the next couple of years were born in 2008, and a lot of parents weren't having as many children in 2008 because of the recession. So college enrollment numbers are going to drop.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're all kind of afraid of. And what really hurts schools like East Carolina is for the first time this past year, NC State and UNC Chapel Hill took people from their wait list. So
Mm.
those people that usually have applied to go to UNC Chapel Hill or NC State who are on the wait
Hmm.
list, their
Hmm.
next school has always been East Carolina.
Hmm.
And when ECU is dependent on those students to come here, you can only lower your standards to get more people, or you stay the same and don't have those people. So like
Hmm.
that's a big, concern is how does a school of our stature and our enrollment and our endowment, how do we maintain success through years to come?
Hmm. So way back when the COVID-19 pandemic was happening, how badly was your department affected then? Were you around during 2020,
I was. So
2021?
I was on our facilities team and I was emergency
Hmm.
personnel. And I oversaw our swimming pool in our aquatics area.
Hmm.
So I actually came into work 3 days a week by myself and just checked on the rec center, make sure things weren't leaking, pick up mail that was still being delivered. I was the
Hmm.
guy that hung all the plexiglass, put up barriers, came up with the plan.
Hmm.
Um, I have an email saved that I sent like 8 months in advance of the COVID-19 pandemic that
Hmm.
to our student health people saying, hey, if we had a major outbreak of some virus, what would we do? And like, so we had kind of done some preparation for that. And then I had heard in November, because I stay relevant on world happenings, in
Hmm.
November, December there of, what is that, 19 or 18, 19, they were like, hey, there's
Hmm.
this virus type going on. So we had pre-purchased a lot of sanitation equipment and some chemical stuff that was supposed to kill everything. So we were
Hmm.
pretty prepared for that moment. And I think I was more prepared than my life because we were told that hey, classes aren't in, and when you send students home, they're not paying a student fee. So our department, we all had to take 10 days that we were furloughed off.
Hmm.
And so that kind of rotated around the department, and so you had this, there was some worry about your job security, but I knew if, we were prepping and doing what we needed to do, that we would probably be okay. Um, and then it's hard to recreate during those times when you have to have social distancing and you have to have
Hmm.
masks. And,
Hmm.
I fought for us to do stuff safely, as did our director. But you got to wait and see what the state does.
Hmm.
But it was a trying time, but we worked inside our parameters and made it work. Instead of playing flag football that year, we did a golf event where we did longest drive and chipping challenges and a lot of individual dual sport activities instead of just these team ones, which is fine. And
Mhm.
I'm actually a proponent of more single dual activities because if you're recreating long term, you're not going to be able to get up with nine other guys and go play basketball as
Mhm.
easy as you would to go play around a golf by yourself or to pick up a partner and play pickleball or badminton or tennis. I'm real big on lifelong activities.
Mm. So you mentioned that you were furloughed off. So what does that mean? Were you on, were those days that you had to take off? Were you paid
Yeah,
or?
so furlough means like, hey, we're not going to fire you, but
Hmm.
we also can't pay you, but we're going to let you keep your benefits.
Hmm.
So I didn't get it. I got 10 days without a paycheck, but I got to keep my health insurance.
Oh, wow.
And then
So what are some, oh,
I
sorry, go
was saying
ahead.
my partner at the time worked at ECU as well. And so for our household, we had to balance out 20 days without pay when, we don't live paycheck to paycheck, but it's pretty,
Hmm.
everyone's pretty close to paycheck to the 2 days before paycheck. So that was a fun challenge. All right, you take your 10 days on this day, and I'm gonna take my 10 on that day. So
Hmm. So what trends have you been seeing in the engagement of students in the programs that you work with?
yeah, so for us, we know when it's an Olympic year that
Hmm.
tryouts for those Olympic sports and the interest in those sports is going to be greater. So just preparing,
Hmm.
like when soccer, for example, when women's soccer won the World Cup or the Olympic gold
Hmm.
medal, we had
Hmm.
120 girls come out to try out for soccer.
Oh, wow.
And on down years, we might only have 30 or 40. But so
Hmm.
that's one trend that we know always is going to happen is when Olympic sports are successful that we hear more, we get more interest. Far as some trends, I think golf, and I'm not for sure if you're familiar with Tiger's new league. So
Hmm.
it's virtual. It's very long-term sustainable. You hit into a projector, you then go to a small piece of grass, a small area of sand, and then you
Hmm.
putt. I think that's probably a big future of recreation just because it's going to be more sustainable and it's going to tear down some barriers to why people don't play golf, right?
Hmm.
Um, because it's an expensive sport.
It
Um,
is.
and you got to have equipment for it. You gotta, there's rules like, can I wear a polo? Can I not wear a polo? Do I have to, depending on if you're going to a country club or a municipal golf course. So I think that's one big one is virtual golf will be something key as we move forward.
Hmm.
And then obviously pickleball is on the rise and has been, I mean, pickleball has been around since the 60s and now it's
Hmm.
just starting to take off. So that's a big sport for us. And then, for us, gambling. That's going to be a focus of ours. We've got to educate our students on gambling about sports because I don't hear people
Yeah.
talking about, man, did you see the
Sports
last play of that?
betting.
Yeah, that last play of the game last night. It's always, man, he made that shot and it cost me my 14 leg parlay and I lost twelve
Oh my
dollars.
God, that is my friend. That like the
Dude,
bro,
all the
that
time. And
right.
people are betting on intramural games now. So they're putting
Yes.
over unders like, oh, I think this team's going to win. And, it's here. It's going to happen. It's legalized in our state.
Hmm.
So I think that's going to be a new challenge for us is how do we address sports betting so that people can be educated to do it smartly, right?
Hmm.
And because gambling is an addiction, and we
It
know that
is.
it's just like alcohol or eating too much or any other vice. You can get in
Hmm.
trouble. And for me, I loved going out partying and drinking when I was here at ECU,
Hmm.
but I would just swipe my credit card. And then all of a sudden, I got $15,000 in credit card debt
Hmm.
from partying and doing whatever the hell I wanted all the time. And I don't want that to happen to somebody who's gambling because it's a lot easier. I only went out on Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, but you can
Hmm.
gamble every day of the week. You can gamble every hour of the day, every minute on virtual
Hmm.
basketball in China or,
Hmm.
last night's championship game between Florida and Houston. For me, I think that's going to be the biggest piece is recreational professionals have to take on this mantle of, hey, if you're going to gamble, you got to do it smartly.
Hmm. So, what is some advice that you would give to students that are interested in the sports management field?
I would say have a backup plan. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, if you're going to work, especially in athletics and at the varsity, especially at the collegiate level,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not going to Alabama, USC, Texas, some of those school, Duke, if you're not going to those schools, you're going to be the person doing all the work, and you're going to be there for more than 40 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and they will break you down physically and your spirit, and not think twice about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe me, go ask like ECU athletics department right now. How many new people work in that office, or how many people have been hired within the past 3 years? It's just unsustainable expectations that have been beaten into people that, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you got this job, you work for athletics, so you have to give XYZ, and it
Mm-hmm.
just burns people out. And then all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I can't do another day. I can't do another 70-hour week. And so what are you going to do after that?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going to go that's going to pay you $55,000 and give you health insurance and benefits in this area? So you got to either be willing to relocate, take a different job, take a salary cut. You got to find out, what is it? You want life or do you want work? And some people say you got to have work-life balance. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying, if and that doesn't work. So if someone's ever told you to have work-life balance, go ahead and get that out of your head. This is my
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing to students for advice. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to, I got a full bottle of water right here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got a full bottle of water and I got a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
This obviously weighs more than the notebook, but I'm balancing them.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of energy to balance things, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
will have to constantly hold my hands and my arms like this forever if I want balance.
Mm-hmm.
But if I got harmony, I can just put these things down at the same time and they can work together. Just like in
Mm-hmm.
music, we love harmony in music because it sounds good because it naturally goes together. So
Mm-hmm.
I encourage all of my students to find work life harmony, not work life balance. Because you work 60 hours at your job this week, but you get to do 25 the next week. That's still, that's still not balanced. It might
Mm-hmm.
be really great this week, but it sucked. And it's that measure the level of crap that we always get stuck in. So find harmony, not balance, is my biggest advice to students.
Mm-hmm. So if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, with your younger self, what would it be?
I always joke. I would tell my younger self to not buy that second cookout tray and not buy that case of beer. Just get six. Because for me, a lot of my priorities got out of whack. You may not be able to tell it in this setting, but I
Mm-hmm.
used to be 410 pounds,
Oh, really?
and I'm about 260, 270 now. And for me, it was some of, I got bad habits. I was drinking Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then I would go out and get cookout trays, get two cookout trays, house them, and finish it with a six pack of beer. And you put on weight. It don't matter how much you work out because you got such a terrible diet.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm not sleeping because I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 nights out of the week. Um, then you get more financially in debt. So like for me, it would have just like my former self would be like, hey, ease up a little bit, and don't make such destructive decisions that
Mm-hmm.
could eventually haunt you, for the rest of your life.
So with regarding your career, if you had the opportunity to do it all over again, would you?
Yeah, without a doubt. Every experience that brought me to where I am today was purposeful and for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom always said everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, my
Uh,
mom said the exact same thing.
and it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
and you'll impart that knowledge to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'll be 40 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you get older, and maybe I've started sooner, you think about death and mortality and what your legacy will be. For me, people ask that question about what's your legacy, and it really doesn't matter because
Mm-hmm.
who's going to remember Justin Waters, who ran club sports 10,000 years from now? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
somewhat depressing to think about, but it's like just live in the moment. Just do as much as you can now for people, and
Mm-hmm.
not wait to see how you're going to be judged. There's a great book out right now. I don't know if you read. It's called Let Them, Let, and then Them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit of mentality. Talks about your mentality and how you work with people, and always feeling if you feel like someone judges you or criticizes you. It's just a good book to put some things in perspective. And so for me, like I said, I would do everything over just like I did it. Maybe one or two things here that I learned from that I was like, man, that was a stupid mistake. But even those stupid mistakes ended up being great learning experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and you really learn stuff when you screw up bad, and you have to. It's one of the things like I'll never do that again because of that situation.
Mm-hmm. So if you weren't doing this, like, what would you be doing right now? If you weren't working the career you were working now, what do you think that you'll be doing?
Um, If I could pick anything, I would probably go into trying to be like a chef. I
Mm-hmm.
love to cook. I cook all the meals that are in our household.
Mm-hmm.
Southern soul food with some crazy, you know, type of adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's probably what I would do and still be officiating on the side just to try to stay connected. The only trouble with going into the food business is like that's worse than a lot of other things. Like you're just there nonstop, especially if you own your own restaurant or you
Mm-hmm.
own your own bar or something. Like you have to be on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. I value my away time very much.
Mm-hmm. So, what's your favorite sport?
I would say probably right now. I'm really just. I love uh, NHL hockey right now, and I think that's because I'm a Carolina Panthers fan.
Mm-hmm.
And in 30 seasons, we've only had 7 winning seasons. And the Carolina Hurricanes, over the past 6, 7 years, are the second winningest team in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So when your team wins, you feel good. So I get more hockey games to watch. There's like, what, 50 in a season, and I only get 16, 17 games for my Panthers. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's NHL hockey and NFL football right now.
Mm-hmm. So, if you could hang out with any athlete or celebrity or famous person, who would it be?
Hmm. Athlete, celebrity, famous person. Um, I think it'd be really cool, just probably because of some of my personal beliefs and everything, to sit down
Mm-hmm.
with President Obama. That was a pivotal moment in my life when he was elected in
Mm-hmm.
2008. Coming to college, being from a small country school, um, you know, uh, a lot of his values and what his administration fought and did also aligned with mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it would be cool to play around the golf, shoot some basketball hoops with him. You know, maybe roll up a blunt. Who knows?
So if you had to switch jobs with any other department on campus, or let me say this, if you could work any other
Hmm.
department on campus, what would that be?
Um, I probably admissions.
Uh,
I would love to recruit students to come to East Carolina and let them know that they can do it because I did it.
mhm,
As a first gen, the eastern part of North Carolina is what East Carolina supports and breeds from. We're not Chapel
mhm,
Hill. We're not going to be Wake Forest or State, any of those. Like we
mhm,
serve the East, and I think if I was working in admissions, I could carry that flag and convey that message to hopefully get people to come to East Carolina.
mhm. So if you could instantly master one sport that you've never played before, or a sport that you're not good at, what would that be?
Golf, 100%.
Mm,
I love playing golf, and I wish I was a lot better, but I'm not willing to put in the time and effort to be that good. So to just naturally be that good would be super super nice. Um, and then just the social aspect that the game of golf brings to have be
mhm,
outside with a couple of friends is pretty enjoyable in my book.
For me, it'd be basketball because I absolutely suck at basketball. So I would love to.
Dude, I used to be like, I never played in high school. I learned later when I came to ECU, like playing
Mhm.
intramurals, and I'm so bad. But everyone thinks you're good at basketball. I'm 6'7", and so when you're tall, everybody asks, "Oh, do you play basketball? Do you play basketball?" And I've always been like, "No," and they're like, "Well, why not?" And you're like, "Well, I suck. That's why I'm not good at it." But I still we play. We have a faculty staff league. We play every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from about 11:30 to 1.
Mhm.
So I still play basketball weekly for 6-7 hours, but
Mhm.
I'm not. It's more of a cardio. Let's get a workout in. Not hey, I had 17 points, 3 assists, and 10 rebounds.
All right, so the very last question. What's your favorite tradition here at ECU? I know you said you loved homecoming, but what is your favorite like tradition or thing about ECU?
Um, Yeah, I think homecoming obviously is special place to come back, see how the university's changed. Um,
Hmm.
we have started. So my father passed away in the summer in August of 2016 unexpectedly,
Hmm.
and my mom and I took some of the life insurance money and we
Hmm.
endowed a scholarship, and
Hmm.
now we host a golf tournament every year, and
Hmm.
that money goes to that scholarship to give back to our club sport athletes.
Hmm.
And so for me, while it's not a well-known tradition, it is a tradition for us. So we'll have our eighth annual golf scramble this year on
Hmm.
September 19th.
That's nice. So this is the end of our interview. And I'd like to thank you so much for helping me out and letting me interview you. This was really a really insightful interview.
Cool, great. I'm glad I could help. And we're always hiring around here. If you're looking for an on-campus job, come see us.
Oh, really? All right. Thank you so much. I might look for that on-campus job because I'm gonna need a job for next year. So,
Yeah, come on. We hire, obviously you sound like you have some sports background, so we're always
mm.
hiring officials, and then we have site supervisors that oversee the site, set up it for logistics and all that fun stuff. So
All right. Thank you so much. Have a nice
yeah,
day.
hope you have a great day.
All right, you too.